here at Zyxel, and I want to welcome you to today's Tech Talk on the configuration and setup of SecuReporter. So thank you for joining us today. So today I'm going to go over SecuReporter, and I'm going to go through our agenda real quick. So first I'm going to go over what SecuReporter is, cover the licensing aspect, go over how to set up your gateway to connect to SecuReporter. Then I'll cover how to set up SecuReporter in the cloud. And then finally, I'll do a live demo to show the kind of reports that you can get from SecuReporter. So first, what is SecuReporter? So SecuReporter is Zyxel's cloud-based reporting software that's separate from Nebula. SecuReporter allows you to connect your USGs, your ATPs, and your USG flexes to our cloud reporting software. And as you use your firewalls and as it reports information, it sends it to the cloud. Now, if you are familiar with some of our Zyxel software in the past, we had something very similar called Vantage Reports. The main difference between Vantage Reports and SecuReporter here is that with Vantage Reports, it required you to have a virtual machine and have to install specific software on the VM in order to set up your offsite remote logging software. So with SecuReporter, this is all done in the cloud, so there's no extra hardware required, nor is there any extra software required to get started. So on your firewalls, either be the USG Flex, the ATP, or the VPN series, it takes the logs from your firewalls, being your UTM services, and it sends it to our cloud server where it organizes everything into nice, neat visual display where you can actually go through and search logs for specific violations, or if you needed to see what the trends were over the past week for, say, your IDP, it displays all that information within SecuReporter. Now, SecuReporter does require UTM licensing on the firewalls to report. So therefore, if you wanted to report on your IDP or your antivirus or malware, you will need to have the firewall set up with the UTM licensing. And of course, what the SecuReporter does is it gives you detailed reports of the UTM threats and any policy violations. In addition, just like in our Nebula reporting, you can set it up to email a customer or email anybody in management, either on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis, depending on your license. Now, speaking of licensing, there's two different tiers of licenses when it comes to SecuReporter. So we have our base and we have our premium. So our base is going to be available on our older bundled USG series and also the newer USG Flex. So if you have an older USG firewall that had the older licensing structure, you will automatically get the base SecuReporter licensing. However, if you purchase a newer USG, like the ATPs or the USG Flex, or the USGs that now have the 5-in-1 bundle, you automatically get the premium SecuReporter. And there's differences between the base and the premium. The base is going to be free, and then the premium is going to be a licensed option. So if you choose not to get the bundle, let's say you pick up an ATP or let's say you pick up a USG Flex, you get the standalone version, and later on down the road, you want to install the 6-in-1 license bundle. It comes with the SecuReporter premium. However, if you already had, let's just say that you had the 6-in-1 bundle and you renewed all of your other licenses, however you want to add the SecuReporter premium license, we do sell them as single licenses. Now, in terms of the features between the differences between the two, with the base, you get weekly reporting and daily reporting. So that means that you can email a report out to your customers on a daily or weekly basis. Whereas in the premium, you get the added monthly feature. For your analytic history, for the base, for the free version, you get 7 days of analytical history, whereas the premium gives you 30 days. Log retention, which is often a very huge advantage to have when you have any type of policies such as HIPAA compliance where you need to store logs for a year. That would be a premium feature, whereas the base or free version gives you 7 days of log retention. And then finally, when it comes to log filtering search, you have 7 days on the free version and up to 30 days on the premium SecuReporter. So let's talk about how it's set up in the gateway. So to set up SecuReporter, to connect to, or set up your gateway to connect to SecuReporter, you have to do three things. First thing you need to do is you need to register the device through MyZyxel. You need to add licenses if applicable, and then you need to add, or actually activate, the SecuReporter license. So in your firewall, if you go to configuration and licensing and then registration in the menu, you'll be able to see if your device is already registered through MyZyxel. If it's not registered through MyZyxel, you can click on the link at the bottom, which will directly take you to the MyZyxel page to get the device registered. Once the device is registered, if you click on inside myzyxel.com, once you've logged in with your account, under device management and then my devices, you have a list of all the devices that are registered to your account. What you'll need to do is find the device that you would like to activate it on, click on the MAC address, and you'll be given a separate menu that shows all of your linked services bound to that device. All you'll need to do is find SecuReporter if it's premium or if it's the base version. Click on the details link on the far right, and then you'll have the option to activate it. If it's already been activated, it will tell you that there's no activations needed to be done, and then it'll give you information as to how many days are left on the activation itself. Once this is done, we go back to the firewall, log back in, go to configuration, Cloud CNM, and then SecuReporter. And then all you need to do is enable SecuReporter in this field, and then check all the options of what you would like SecuReporter to be reporting on. So that's going to be all of your security services, and then you can also do network information, such as your interface statistics, application statistics with App Patrol, and then your traffic log. In this section here, you also have the ability to see exactly when your SecuReporter license expires on the device. So I'll take a minute here to answer a question that just came up. Does SecuReporter count as SIEM monitoring? I don't believe it does. I can look into that and find out that information for you. Okay, now moving over to the cloud setup. First thing you'll need to do is go to the link secureporter.cloudcnm.zyxel.com. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but that is the full URL link for SecuReporter. Secondly, once you've logged into the SecuReporter page, you're going to go ahead and click on the More option, which is at the very top right. Under More, you're going to go to Organization, and then under Organization, you need to create an organization. And the reason why we're doing this is it's very similar to Nebula, where you create an organization within SecuReporter, and then you assign devices to your organization. So in this setup here, we're going to create an organization called Headquarters. So first we go to More, go to Organization and Device, and then click on Add Organization. Once we have that organization name set up, we want to go ahead and add a device to it. Now, because we logged into SecuReporter's website with our myzyxel.com credentials, is linked up together, and they can see each of the devices that we have assigned to that account. So in this example, you see I have multiple devices that are assigned to my Zyxel account, and I just need to choose a device that has not been claimed. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and look for the device I would like to claim, and then if I hover on the right-hand side, there's a link to claim the device. Once you've claimed the device, you can choose what organization it belongs to. You're presented with a drop-down list so that you can choose the organization if you have multiple organizations set up. After you click on Next, you have the option for your protection policy. We have 3 different options for our protection policy. We are fully GDPR compliant, so that means that if you need to use the GDPR policies or you're in a country that requires you to have GDPR, then you're going to go ahead and select Fully Anonymous. Fully Anonymous, as it collects information on the SecuReporter site, will anonymize the information for the MAC address, the user's emails, and the host names. If you would like to do partially anonymous, Personal data such as usernames, MAC addresses, and emails are replaced with artificial number identifiers when you use the archive logs that are downloaded. And then finally, there's non-anonymous, which basically gives you all the information, usernames, MAC addresses, and email addresses. Now, SecuReporter does not collect any personal information in terms of what the packets of the users are doing. So we're only able to see the host names of traffic that's traversing the network. We're able to see MAC addresses that are traversing the network. We're able to see the usernames for any type of authentication and email addresses that are used for any type of authentication, whether it be Radius or a AAA server. Now, before I go into the live demo, it looks like there is another question. How much does it affect traffic throughput to enable traffic statistics capture? In terms of the information that's sent, is very light. It's very similar to the Nebula traffic statistics. So within Nebula, it's sending traffic information up to the cloud every so often. I believe it's every few minutes. That traffic is very, very light. So you're not going to get bombarded, or you're not going to create a huge spike in your bandwidth as it sends the information to the cloud. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and get started with the live demo. I'm going to bring up our SecuReporter. And this is our demo. If you actually go to secureporter.cloudcnm.zyxel.com, we have it set up so that we have a demo username and password that you can log into to take a look at the SecuReporter live in action. It's set up to an account where you can't really modify anything, but it gives you read-only access if you want to go ahead and take a look. And this is what I will be using, just because it has a lot of information that's already been collected with their demo that's been set up. So here is our SecuReporter page. So when you log into SecuReporter, this is exactly what it looks like. It looks very similar to what you normally would see on, say, our ATP threat management page or the Sandboxing management page. It gives you all of the information that you'll see in terms of your ADP hits, your anti-malware hits, all of that information. So this is basically your home page. Now, if you want to see more detailed reports, we have our analysis icon, and you can go down to the security indicator to get more in-depth information. So clicking on that will give you a breakdown of specific things that you can see. So we have the ADP, we have IP reputation. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. My apologies. The screen was paused. Sorry about that. Let me back it up a little bit here. This is the main homepage that you land on here. So it has all the information similar to the ATP, and how the ATP has its URL threat management or its threat protection ATP tab, which gives you a breakdown of the top threats that you see within the ATP. So this gives you the very similar information. However, it gives you more in-depth information in terms of what's been protected against, or what your device is being protected against. So if you go over to your analysis on the left-hand side, you go to analysis and you go to security indicator, we can see the differences here. We have ADP, we have IP reputation, and we have IDP. And it's taken just a moment because my internet connection has lagged out, so I do apologize. Give me just a moment. There we go. So here we have our ADP, or Advanced Anomaly Detection Prevention security page, and it gives you a trend of how many hits were done in terms of the ADP being triggered on the firewall. We can see the top signature type, we can see the top event type, and we can see our source and destination IPs that were triggered by ADP. If you want, you can go into further information. You can look at it by signature, you can look at it by type, and by source and destination IP. So these will give you the top hits in terms of ADP, But if you want to get into more detail, it logs all the information as to what devices were causing those specific hits and their destination. Moving on, we have our IP reputation filter that's found in our ATP series. So with our IP reputation, you can see the same thing. You can see where the risk IP address, the top type, the top source, and the top destination. And again, if you want to go into more detail at the very bottom, it gives you both the source and destination rolling logs for the IP reputation. IDP, very similar. You can see the top signature type for intrusion detection prevention. And then you can go into more detail as to which ones or which sources and which destinations were causing the IDP to trip. And then you can see what the signature is that was caught or that caught the IDP. DNS filtering, if you're using DNS filtering on the ATP, again, you get the same top DNS filter domain. You can see the top threat, source, and destination. And then again, it breaks down the actual domains themselves for the DNS filter hits. URL threat filter, same as the ID or the IP reputation filter, but this one does it based on the URL threat. We can see the top threat websites. So if someone tries to visit a URL that is known to be a threat, it's going to flag it, it's going to block it. And then here you'll have it in the logs. You can see what websites were being flagged by the URL threat filter. Your AV and your malware, same thing here. We can see the top viruses and malware with the source and destination IP. Of course, we have our log up here. We can actually go back, since this is the pro version of Premium, we can go back to the last 30 days, and we can see the number of hits. Excuse me. We can see the daily number of hits as we go through. So we can see that we have, 1,400 hits here. It seems to be pretty consistent. But we can come down here and take a look at what types of viruses, what's the signature for the virus or malware. And again, we can see where the source and destination is coming from. Sandboxing, this is going to be unique to the ATP only. It is not available on the US Flex or the VPN series. Sandboxing, of course, is going to be your zero-day threat analysis. If the ATP cannot find a signature that matches a specific threat, it sends it to the cloud to be analyzed in the sandboxing environment to determine exactly what that particular file does. If it's malicious or suspicious, it will then generate a specific signature for it and then send it to all ATP users. So here we can see, in terms of sandboxing, we can see the type of threat that was found. So it looks like there was 240 executables that were scanned, and then we have 45 zip file archives. We can see the top file name of the devices that were scanned, and then their hash information as well. Now for top user, it's going to show admin. And the reason why it shows admin is because by default, if you're not doing any type of web authentication, all information of where specific hits are coming from are going to show up as the top user as admin. In order to get full information on your users, you need to set up web authentication on your firewall. Because with web authentication, you can then track the users based on their username. You can use either the built-in radius on the firewall, or you can connect it up to an Active Directory or radius server for authentication. And it's actually very, very useful to use that, because then you can go back and find out which users had specific violations. And then finally, if you're doing any type of local mail, if you're using any type of local mail server, we do have our mail protection, and we can scan for spam senders when it comes in, and then we can see exactly which email subject was what caused the email to trip, the email protection to trip. We can see the email sender, and then we can see who it was received and who it was sent by in terms of IP address. Now, moving along, there's something else we can do here, which is going to be our reporting option. So if we come here to history and we go to report, we can set up our reporting formats. So if we click on the little gears on the far right-hand side, and let's just say that we want to set up a monthly report, we would just drop down here and choose the email addresses we would like to have the monthly report sent out to. So in terms of the monthly report, on the first of the month, you get to choose what the report will report on. So your threat trend, your blocked websites, all of this information will be generated in a report and then sent out at the beginning of the month. All you need to do is enter in the email addresses of those you would like it sent to. You would set up your title, and then you would set up a description, and then it will send this out on a monthly basis. One of the things you can do is if you have it set up to do web authentication, you can search by user. So because this is not set up with web authentication, all the activity is going to show coming from the admin. So if we look at the admin, we can see that they had all their security hits. So you get a detailed report of a specific user. Now, unfortunately, at this time, it does not give you a full log of every specific thing. We only give you the top information. So we see the top events, we can see the top source IP address, we can see their top destination, the top website that was blocked if they had website content filtering enabled, and then the top blocked application. If they tried to log in with web authentication and if they failed, you can see if they failed a certain amount of times, maybe they forgot their password, but it does collect that information. Now, I believe in the future, there will be more in depth in terms of going through the logs to see a rolling account of exactly what the users has done. But as of right now, it is broken down to top events. So top source, top event, top IP address, top blocked application, and then website and top country at this time. Here we have our logs. So we have our security logs where you can look at the specific events. So if you want to look at your application control logs, we can come in here. So we have it limited way too short here, but we can go through and look at the actual logs, like as if they came in from the USG. So on the USG, they basically, it captures the log information for application control, and then it sends it to SecuReporter. So we can actually see, how many times a specific rule was hit on the firewall. So let's just say that you set up a specific rule for application control to reject Facebook. We can see those particular violations here in the event log. And again, with the event log, we can go back 30 days, and we can actually set up a custom range if we need to. So this applies to all of the UTM security features: ADP, IDP, IP reputation, DNS filtering, URL threat filtering, antivirus, malware, sandbox, and mail protection. Next, I want to talk about the reporting for the alerts. So if you come over here to history and go to alerts, we can actually set up a specific alert. These are the default alerts that are set. So if you see something here, let's say network security DNS filtering, it's set to high. However, we can come here to further define the action and go to alert settings. We can set up an email notification, and we can put an email address in here. Under view alert definition, we can then define at what point in time it sends that information. So for instance, if we come over to say anomaly, let's just say that we can choose at how many times let's say a SYN threat attack comes in. If it's detected at a certain amount of time over a certain period of time, then it will automatically send an email out. If you're seeing protocol anomalies for TCP, UDP, ICMP, or IP decoder, you can set a specific amount of time. So let's say that if it happens 10 times within 5 minutes, it will send out an alert via an email. Same thing for network security. Under network security, if you see an attack, so if somebody's trying to brute force an attack on your firewall, if the attack is by default over 10 times within 5 minutes, it will send an email alert. So you do have the ability to further define and for the categories for your network security, your device, and your anomalies to determine at what point, at what threshold the email logs are sent. And then finally, one more thing I want to touch on here is going to be your users. So if we come over here to the more option and go to members, we can set up a specific member. So we can add a member. We can just call in, let's say, we can come in and add a member here. We add in a member here, and then we come over to member access privileges. We can choose either admin, member, or none. So they can either be a regular admin, they can be a regular member, or they can be none. So if it's set to none, they can just log in, but they can't see anything. A member basically has basic read privileges, and then an admin is going to have read and write privileges. If you need to add exceptions, you can create an exception rule to specify that a member has access to a specific organization or a specific device, and then you can choose what privilege they have for that particular organization and device. Okay, and with that, I'm actually going to leave the floor open for questions, as that is the end of SecuReporter. Okay, so a question has come in about DNS traffic on the ATPs. This person has said that they don't see any DNS traffic on any of my ATPs. How do I configure that on the ATP? I believe I went over that in a previous webinar, but if you're not seeing any DNS traffic, you should be seeing that if you're doing the DNS filtering. We do have an option that you can set up for DNS filters so that you can kind of sit in the middle for your DNS requests. And then you can set it up so that it can redirect traffic to, if it's a DNS site that's blacklisted, or if it's a website that's blacklisted or URL that's blacklisted, you can redirect them to a specific predefined website that you have set up on the firewall. So if you're not seeing any DNS traffic at all, can you be a little bit more specific in terms of DNS traffic that you're not seeing? So are you talking about the DNS filtering, or you're talking about DNS in general? DNS filtering hits the reports. Okay, if you're not seeing that, you might want to check to see if your DNS filtering is set correctly, because it's only going to log. You need to make sure it's set to log for sure, because if it's not setting to log anything, then it's not going to report anything to SecuReporter. So make sure that your DNS filtering, when you have it set up, is set to log. And that's pretty much for anything in regards to any of the ATM services. They need to be set to log. Otherwise, it's not going to send anything to SecuReporter, because it's just copying the logs and sending it to SecuReporter. Will this allow me to see LAN packet storm, or is this traffic to and from the WAN? It's traffic generated inside of the network. So you'll be able to see a little bit of bandwidth, but you're not going to see any kind of packet storm. You do get basic traffic reports in terms of the bandwidth usage on ports or individual interfaces, but it's not going to really alert you for a packet storm, because in the firewall, the only thing that it reports in terms of high traffic usage is going to be session counts. So if you hit like a session limit, it's going to report that in SecuReporter. So a question was asked, does the collect statistics settings on the monitoring pages on the firewalls report to SecuReporter in any way? That's actually storing it locally. So when you set it to report now, there's a monitoring. In fact, let me see if I can bring one up for you to kind of show you. I know exactly what you're talking about. So in the monitoring section of your firewall, just a minute here. In the monitoring section of your firewall, there is a section that says collect statistics. And that specifically is for collecting statistics locally, because there is a monitoring section on the firewall, and it does pull that information locally, and then it stores it on the device. However, it's only going to store so much information, only because the memory is not large enough to hold as much information. So let me bring that up here. All right, so here we go. So on the system status in the firewall, there is a section to collect statistics. And this information is going to store it locally again. So if we come and look at like maybe our port statistics, we can see information, traffic statistics. We can see information. If we select it to collect statistics now, it will start collecting information locally. However, it's only going to hold so much information, and then at some point it's going to start to overwrite it, only because it holds so much. If you set it to collect traffic statistics and send it to the to SecuReporter, because there is a section for traffic statistics as well. So it's pretty much the same, except for one is going to hold it locally and one's going to put it in the cloud. Because you have to remember, everything that's collected on the firewall is going to be collected in SecuReporter, specifically the logs. So here under SecuReporter, here's a traffic log right here. Okay, so I'll keep the floor open for about another 5 more minutes for any other questions that you may have. Please feel free to ask those questions. And also, if you have any comments or questions as well, you can email me directly. My email is marcush@zyxel.com. Again, I am the sales engineer here at Zyxel. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And again, I'll leave the floor open for questions for another 5 minutes.